we're going to move on to our next panel now that are all joining online. Elaine Plybon, I think you're on already. There you are, Elaine. Awesome. And then Heather Sherburne. Want to make sure you also turn on your screen if you can. You don't have to. We can just actually turn on your mic. There you are. Okay, good. Well, we see your computer, but not you yet, I think. And then also Kevin Hendrick from Pinellas. Kevin, I think you're here. I'm going to make sure you're unmuted. Yeah, you are. Okay, great. Okay, Heather, we're just seeing your computer, but it's, you know, there you go. All right, so let me first introduce all of you guys, and then I want to show your certificates for winning EduJedi status. This is a major accomplishment. Then we're just going to talk for the next hour about what you've done and where you're going and what the future looks like and that kind of thing. So Elaine, so nice to have you. You're the Director of Personalized Learning Opportunities from Keller ISD and our newest EduJedi innovator from Texas. This is your certificate. These are all attached in the handouts. So when we looked at the survey responses, and I'm sure your tech list is longer, almost every district says that to us, oh, our tech list is much longer than that. Well, we know that because inventory is hard for software. It's a hard thing to do. It's like, who's using what? And there's a rogue teacher over there using this stuff, and we didn't know it. But we're proud of you for what you're doing with Remote Ready, your badging, and your virtual learning, and your awesome educator training. So this is why we named you an innovator with your 43 schools and 35,000 some students. So thank you for joining us today. Now I'm going to move on to Heather.
Hi, Leilani.
Hi, it's so good to have you with us. I could go on and on about Lammersville, and Lammersville won night status this year, not only for the district level, but also Mountain House individually. So both have been named night level status. So the reason we're having Lammersville join us as an EduJedi Night is because at the district level, you haven't treated tech as something augmentative to administration. You are leading through tech. This is night level work. So it's not just let's roll out a bunch of stuff. What you're doing there, Heather, is majestic in terms of the alteration of time and space and how you're facilitating true personalization. I'll get into that later with the school level that you have, Mountain House. But so proud to have you with us too.
Thank you so much for that.
Yeah, yeah. And then also Pinellas, which we've known different people at Pinellas for many years. Hello, Kevin. Quite a few of your staff. We're very proud of all of them. We've loved working with them over the years. But what we're really proud about what Pinellas is doing, and the reason we named you an achiever, is that you're at the level now of personalized learning pathways being administered with your platform. And once a district moves into trying to deliver and execute for real on personalized learning, that makes you move up sort of the EduJedi ranks. And so we're very proud of you. And additionally, we're even more proud because you're such a large district, making it an administrative nightmare, we're sure. So we can't wait to have you talk all about that. Okay, so let's move back to having you guys one at a time sort of give us your viewpoint of what got you to this level of, you know, being an EduJedi, and then we'll do another round of questions on where the future is going. So Elaine, let's have you go first. You're first on the slide, so I'm simple-minded. I'm just going across the slide. Sorry, Kevin, because you're on the end. But so Elaine, so talk to us about kind of what's been happening in Keller.
Oh wow, that's a very large question.
Yeah, everything probably. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot. You know, we, as with everybody, were thrown for a loop at the start of 2019. One of the things that was kind of nice is that we already had a virtual learning program, and we've had one since 2014. So we had a lot of things already in place that we were able to kind of scale out. We had completed our initial round of trainings that we did all through the summer, and then because of our badging system, we ended up having teachers coming back to us, okay, now what, and learning and learning more. One of the unique challenges that we have in Keller ISD, I don't know about other states, but in Texas, we are required to allow parents to change their mind every grading period. So every time we hit a grading period and we're essentially rewriting a new master schedule every grading period. And as you can imagine, that's problematic for.
You mean by change their mind, like opt out?
Yeah, they can decide, like if they at the start of the school year said, I want my student to be remote, then they can decide, no, I want to be in person. And then the next time they can say, no, really, we like the remote. So we every 6 weeks, or for us, it's a 9-week period, but for every 9 weeks, we have to rewrite our master schedule and reassign teachers and classes and that kind of thing, because we've got this fluid movement of students going from remote to in person or vice versa. So that's where we're at right now. One of the things that we're taking from it is that we understand that if a student has been consistently remote this year, our hypothesis is that they may never come back, that regardless of COVID, they may never come back. So right now we're in the planning phases of what does that mean in the fall? What can we offer that is not a response to COVID, but is instead an innovative, cool option for people who don't want their students to be in school for whatever reason. Maybe they've seen them thrive in this situation. And so I'm very excited about the work we're doing right now on trying to figure out what does that look like in the fall so that this is a true choice rather than a, well, this is what you're stuck with. I think that I think that as one of the gentlemen earlier said, you have to take advantage of this time and opportunity to create new and innovative solutions. So that's kind of where we're at right now.
Yeah, and from my understanding, you're not thinking of it the way schools have thought of it in the past in districts, where there was either your traditional brick and mortar with maybe some electives that are fully online, or you're one of those online kids and you go over there and you're different and strange, probably not social. Like that's the way people normally thought about it. What you're thinking about is what we call truly hybrid logistics, where you already have to be, because of what you just said, Texas law, you already have to be like magic at logistics anyway, right? Because everybody's like coming and going and where are they now and what's happening. So in terms of your evolution logistically, you're looking at something that is a mutation between that physical world and the online, where they're all sort of blended together. That's blending learning at the institution level, not just the classroom. So tell us more about like that logistics back end, because that can't be easy. What are you using? How are you doing that?
So, it's interesting because we had already piloted a hybrid model before COVID hit. So that was kind of cool that we'd already gone through a small pilot and continued that on the campus that I'm housed at right now. And what we did is we took a look at, and again, I said, we've had a virtual learning program since 2014. So we'd already established this quality teaching staff, quality courses, and those kind of things were already there. So what we did is we took the students who were at our CTE center, who normally are going back and forth between their home campus and the CTE center, and the ones that just really didn't have an interest in still being associated with their home campus necessarily, have the opportunity to take their coursework online, and then they take their CTE courses, which they love, in person, or they do their internships in person and those kind of things. They still can do their athletics and they can still do their band and that kind of thing. So it's truly, we end up having to personalize their schedule, and that's probably the most difficult part as it scales out, is that we have to look at every single student, because some of them might be AP level students, and some of them might just be on level students, and some of them might be wanting to take dual credit classes. And we have to kind of weave all that together, where they're doing this combination of being physically present on a campus or being at an internship or at the community college, and then everything else being online. For us, I actually have a team of full-time virtual teachers who are housed at this campus, so those students can drop in anytime that they want for tutorials and things like that. And actually, we were going to do this year, but because of COVID, we did not. But next year, we're scaling that out to our other comprehensive campuses. so that students who maybe really they're only interested in coming to school for their band or athletics could come to school for their band or athletics and then do the virtual classes for everything else. So it was one of those things that I had to start the virtual learning program with this in mind, so that we took step-by-step process of making sure I started off with the teachers. Then I started off with the instructional, the course design, because initially we used vendors for our courses and now we write them for the most part. And so it was like a step-by-step process to get us to where we felt like we could provide the same or better quality education virtually to our students than they got in the face-to-face, because we weren't going to have that trade-off where they're choosing virtual, but they're going to get less of an education. It had to be the same quality or higher. So we've been able to do that in that step-by-step process, I think. And that's one of the biggest things I think that has helped us, is that long range baby step kind of planning that we were able to do. And I'm very thankful that we already had that in place when all this hit. Our students continue here at this campus to do that hybrid model. And like I said, we'll be moving that out to our 4 comprehensive high schools, hopefully next year.
You're defining the higher quality that you don't lose the human interaction, right?
Absolutely. That's one of the most important things. If a student doesn't see the presence of their teacher in an online classroom, they will not perform in it. I mean, we wouldn't either. I mean, I remember the first virtual class I ever took, I literally forgot that I was enrolled in a virtual class because my teacher never reached out to us. And so I failed the class because I really forgot that I was in that class. It's so important that our students, whether they're fully virtual or if they're just remote because of COVID, that they see and hear their teacher and know that that person cares about them as an individual. It's just as important, if not more so, that relationship building in an online classroom.
I totally agree. And I think, just our research has shown over the years that the #1 failure reason in the old style distance learning, online learning, was that it was created to be humanless mostly. And it's why most teachers agree and schools agree that, they keep screaming, you have to have a human. But what you're looking at is the interweaving of that. And we know kids, right? We know kids, you can tell them to go clean their room, and if you don't eyeball them, they don't do it. So it's the eyeballing of kids and the, incessant, you're going to do it or you're not going to get to go out this weekend, that kind of thing. Which, it's a big deal to have teachers lead. So thank you for that. Because you definitely created blend, not just at the classroom level, you're blending the institution into the environment with all your teachers and students. So Heather, you're at the high art level of this, and we're proud to announce you as the new Edu Jedi Knight. I think the original promo out said you guys were innovators or achievers, but you've been dubbed a knight.
Wow.
So congratulations.
Thank you.
You joined St. Vrain, who was the only knight last year, and a couple other districts. So there's only 5 of you now. But there's 5 districts nationwide that have made knight, and you're one of them. So you've really led, not just on the human front with all of your humans, but you're leading through technology to execute on teaching and learning, which is a flipped perspective that's been in the private sector for a very long time. But now it's coming to roost in the school sector. Tell us a little bit about that, like what kind of leadership mindset you have with that.
Well, thank you again. And I appreciate that compliment. I think that's a very important thing that when I came to this district, it already had decided that it wanted to be a district. Our newer superintendent at the time wanted to be a technology district, but what does that mean and what does that look like? And thinking as we started that journey that a computer can't just be a more expensive pencil. And this is still about teaching and learning. And so students have to be at the center of that. And how do you support improve student learning and academics is we're always looking at the data of what is going on with students, which students are succeeding, which students are still struggling, which students need to accelerate, and all of those things. So as we think about it, it was only appropriate, I think, when you're looking at it from a pedagogical perspective, to think, so how do we use technology to work smarter and not harder? And that it's not a more expensive pencil. It's really a great tool, but how can it be a great tool for a teacher to teach better? They still have to know how to teach. They have to be a great teacher. They have to know how to connect with kids. They have to know how to design content. And then they have to know how to do that using technology tools. And so if we look at it that way, then you just extend that out into the rest of the district as well. How do we run our district office better? How do we integrate our student information better? How do we aggregate and disaggregate our data better and smarter? How do we do all of these things so that we have less redundancy and more individualization and more productivity, therefore, at all levels, whether it's, at the employee level, within the support staff, the teaching staff, or at the student level, or even the parent level, because they play an incredibly important role. How do we make that seamless and just continue to improve that flow? It's a lot of work.
Yeah, it's a lot of work. Did you find too, Heather, that as a leader, you personally, if you just look back now over the last, maybe 10 years, that you evolved in terms of your own communication pattern? Because you're not, when your mind goes, I got to get something done, it doesn't go, I got to get that person to do it. As a leader, it goes, how am I going to execute through the infrastructure of means, including the technology at the same time? Did you feel like you went through that yourself?
I would say 1000%, because we all come in, and technology, one of the biggest challenges of technology right now is, in particular in education, is that it's evolving so quickly. And in many ways, that's a good thing, because there are, believe me, a lot of things that some vendors have had their ear bent by me on, saying, this doesn't work. This is ridiculous that you haven't fixed this and come out of it. This is a paper textbook that is now on a computer screen. This is not a truly digital product. And things like, are you kidding me that you didn't think that a principal might want to be able to see the data on how kids are doing? You thought it was only important for teachers to see it? And just some really nonsense kinds of things that I've absolutely been learning as I go through this journey, and understanding the true implications of how important your student information system is, with being fully integrated throughout your district in really productive and meaningful ways with your business system, so that you create less redundancy and better workflows. And it is quite challenging, and we have come a long way, and we still have a long way to go.
Yeah, I would have loved to be a fly on the wall where you were doing the shakedown on vendors, right? I love a lot of them, because they've really come a long way. But what you just said has been very apparent in some of the really interesting companies who are like, no, yeah, this is fine, it's going to be awesome, and no, it doesn't work. So I get it. I'm all about UI UX. You know me, Heather.
Yes.
So super proud of you, and I know there's a lot of people standing behind you. You're standing on the shoulders of a lot of giants in your organization that are just amazing. So would you give them all, our thanks, and as you sort of, make this award known, because this is a big deal, and I know you don't stand alone.
Oh, absolutely. And, I think Ben's probably still on the line, our principal at the high school. He's absolutely done a phenomenal job creating our brand new digital high school. And similar to what Elaine was sharing, with creating multiple pathways for students to have ultimate flexibility between online content, fully online, partially online, our online alternative education program that's has a physical presence, and as well as the online completion to help them accelerate. And just, those things that we've done there are really amazing. Our Blended Learning Academy, my coordinators here in the office, that position was just a godsend in the way we developed it, saying you have to be a great instructional leader and you have to be great at technology. So all of our training is done using best practices of technology to be the best teacher you can be. Our superintendent and our board being especially thoughtful, creating a tech sustainability plan 4 years ago, which I know is now one of the big questions on the horizon with people using CARES Act money to buy this technology and the software and things. And then they're thinking, oh, but what am I going to do 5 years from now when my Chromebooks are now out of date and, yada, 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 my software isn't working. And, fortunately, we've fought this battle to develop multi-million-dollar sustainability plan to track those devices and have the infrastructure and the forethought of how we will continue to roll and move forward with our staff and student devices and software, curriculum adoption, assessment platforms, and what we're looking for.
That's amazing. And we had some of those questions earlier, Heather. We're probably going to want to ask you if we can take some of that policy language and some of that plan so we can share it nationally, because those are the questions. Like a lot of people, like they had to jump in the deep end right now this last year. They weren't ready for it and they don't think it's sustainable. And that's that's a car crash waiting to happen, right? So yeah, we need to start sharing out all that stuff. We have had some questions come in. I'm going to come back around to your questions, everybody, as I come back around to the panelists, but I want to go first to Mr. Kevin Hendrick, who's been so patient. Thank you so much, Kevin. We're excited about you. We're excited about Pinellas. We first met a lot of your people when we were down there, 7 years ago? You've come a long way. So tell us about your own personal journey and sort of like what's happened there in Pinellas.
Sure, and good afternoon or good morning, depending on where you are. Here in sunny Florida, it is even a little chilly today, but not as chilly as everywhere else, I guess. So Pinellas County Schools, we are on the west coast of Florida. St. Petersburg is our largest city, about 100,000 students in our school district. And we do have just a tremendous, I was listening to the other folks on the panel about their teams behind them. We have a tremendous digital learning team in our school district and technology information services team. And our school district and our community has supported technology integration in our schools for with their pocketbooks for over 16 years. We have a referendum that goes to teacher salaries, 80%, but 20% of the referendum property tax goes directly towards reading, the arts, and technology. So many years ago, our voters committed to that. And one of the things we did was put smart technology. It used to be a smart board, now projectors and other things in every single classroom. So in over nearly 7,000 classrooms in our district, that's been an ongoing project. And so technology in terms of in the hands of students, we've always been a district that has never been one-to-one, but has always had a really good share of technology in classrooms. And we've tried to, over the years, integrate that just to the same as the panelists here have said, and the panelists in the first round, talk about how do you use technology to make learning student-driven and not just teacher-directed or replacing that textbook with something that's just digital. And so those efforts have been really well received, and but also sort of supplementary. It's like you have your traditional teaching and learning, and then this technology is a nice supplement. And that all changed, of course, last March when it became the real means of instruction. So some of the things that got us to the spot in March where we were well equipped was the background that we had from our digital learning team, but also a lot of technology tools. We're a district that uses Clever to roster all of our students, and that was really a huge benefit, obviously, when you have 100,000 students going digital, to have all of the resources as a single sign-on. We use Office 365 and we use Microsoft Teams as a means to communicate virtually, and that's something that we found to be an excellent tool, very secure. And in March, we used it as our means of storing information and students submitting assignments and things like that. But of course, we know that teachers are on a huge scale. We've had teachers that have been really technology integration leaders in our district, and then some that have been really on the fringes. And when you have over 7,000 teachers, that's okay until everybody has to teach remotely. And so we had to quickly bring everybody up to speed. And we were able to do so. We distributed to our students about 30,000 devices over the course of a couple weeks to get all of our students with those devices.
Wow.
One of the things that we learned from that was that we can never go back again to a time where there are some students who have technology and internet capability at home, and then there are others that don't. And while we had Title I plans and different ways to connect around that, one of the things we quickly made a decision and our board committed to was we'll never have that again, where some students don't have access and a hotspot or internet connection at home, and not just one that is, you know, a month or two temporary, but permanent. And so that's been something our community has rallied around, and we are transitioning to a full one-to-one school district this year, but also doing so with, we're doing Dell touchscreens, a little bit higher end models, and that's what we've always used in our classrooms. And so really trying to have the full capability of something for students to use in school and at home. Not something that maybe is a partial capability or less than what some a more affluent family might have. I want to switch and talk a little bit about digital curriculum, because that has been a huge shift, and as the head of our teaching and learning division, something we're really proud of. So as we shifted to remote learning in March, the need to have consistent curriculum was really important for us. And in Florida, we continued day to day, taking attendance, regular expectations for grading. We had, you know, full grading in the last quarter of the school year and graduation ceremonies and all those types of things. We really didn't stop any of the expectations in terms of how we would teach our students. So we started asynchronously, but quickly moved into live lessons. And we began producing live lessons using different platforms, and really had success with Nearpod being one of the main ones, where we're able to create curricula by master teachers. And one of the things we were really excited about is controlling the quality of those lessons, so that in some ways it's improving instruction in some of our classrooms, where students who maybe didn't have the highest quality instruction because it was a less experienced teacher or a less capable teacher, and now we're able to push out lessons from master teachers that then can be used by teachers in classrooms every day. So we did that digitally, and we've kept that going now this school year, and I'll talk about our setup in a moment there. But in the summer,
right there, what you just said is you've entered the matrix, right? You've now started to look at your execution of quality instruction from a matrix view, rather than you're just pushing it down and everybody just do whatever they want to do as an individual teacher.
Yeah, and we are a district that is pretty tight on our curriculum in terms of our expectations. Teachers still have flexibility, and that's important, but by and large, we want it to be something that is not left up to, well, this week I want to plan and next week I don't, right? So we're going to have some really streamlined resources that we expect you to use, and if you can do better, by all means do it. But here's the floor that we would expect to see. And having those digital lessons now has enhanced that even further, because it's taking it off the page and saying, and here's what it looks like to read this piece of text with a fourth grade classroom. Here's what it looks like to be able to write to this level of the rubric that we expect you to use. And so that really has been a huge shift that we're excited about. So in the summertime, we educated 15,000 students through our summer bridge program using this master lesson format, where we pushed out a master lesson, ELA with arts integration, and then the classroom teacher followed up with the students after the lesson was broadcast. And so picture a 15 to 20 minute chunks of lessons where every 3 or 4 minutes the classroom teacher stops and says, okay, now here's what you just heard the teacher say. Now let's do this together as a class, and now let's go back and watch it. So a little bit different than we've ever done teaching and learning, and in some ways improving the quality of instruction. In Florida, we went full back to school in August. We had a requirement to have 5 days face-to-face, and in our school district, about half of our students chose that. The other half chose full-time at-home learning, but it was synchronous. We decided to do it synchronous with the school schedule. So you stayed enrolled at your school, And in fact, you had a teacher from your school as your teacher on the regular bell schedule. And that created some challenges. And I think it was, I don't know if it was Elaine or Heather said, you had to read, I think it was Elaine said you had to redo the schedule every quarter. That was the case for us. Now our governor's executive order this week says every week a parent can change their mind if they want to. So we're adapting to that as we move forward. But what it has created is a situation where we have a lot of simultaneous teaching, where teachers are teaching students in front of them, as well as students at home at the same time. And the learning curve for that, as you can imagine, was enormous in August when we began.
Yeah.
And so our digital learning team and our central office folks working with teams of teachers and schools really had to equip our teachers with not just the pedagogy, which is, you know, a challenge in itself, but the hardware to do that. Multiple screens being most important, the sound amplifiers, all of this while you're doing it with a mask on because you have students in front of you. So it was a challenge, but honestly, after a few weeks, teachers have, partly because they're just so resilient and so resourceful, but also because we gave them the tools they needed to be successful as best you can under these circumstances. So we're now to the point where we have about 2/3 of our students face-to-face and are really moving towards that student-driven, where students have a laptop both at home and in person, and are really training my staff, all the folks who create and push out curriculum, to think about the ways in which we can use the technology to better, you know, use critical thinking and problem solving and creativity and innovation. How do we have students communicate and collaborate in different time and space? And we've had a lot of success with that. I know our biography mentions our personalized learning pathway, which takes the tools that many of us use in terms of, we use the MAP assessment, the NWE MAP assessment, and feeds that into this PLP, the personalized learner pathway, and then creates standards-based lessons based on those standards and skills that you have a deficit in. And so some of those standards-based lessons are ones that we've created. Others are ones that we've linked to other digital resources that we use, like Khan Academy or things in Safari Montage that we've built out. So it's pretty exciting in that the PLP updates itself every time a new assessment is taken. So in MAP, it's 3 times a year and you get a new pathway. It also includes a lot of things around college and career readiness. It has SAT scores. It has some badges and things for students in elementary school. So it's definitely very personalized. And anytime in the spring where, you know, we had anything where it was a down day or this technology is not working, Microsoft Teams isn't up, the PLP is something you could always just jump on, and students always had something where they can work and progress with. So that's a little bit of the story in Pinellas. I think, you know, one of the key things that we continue to try to master is the analytics. I think I heard Heather talk about that. We have no shortage of data, and each program individually is fantastic in terms of their reporting. And like Heather, you know, we've had to have some conversations about administrative access levels and things like that with different vendors. But I think the challenge is, how do you put all that together? How do I know that a student is using the PLP and they're also in iReady and they're also in IXL Math and they're also in this and they're also in that and they're in our ELP program after school, and how much time? So how do you merge all those things? Because as we all know, the intervention that works for one student may not be the one for another. And so I can't just look at one tool to say that's the thing that I only want to measure. Across a student's perspective in our dashboard, there may be 10 or 12 different tools that are available, and different ones at different times may be the right one to trigger a student towards learning. And in fact, that tool may not be digital. So how do we measure those things all across? So that's kind of our next step, and one that we continue to evolve with as a challenge, but something we're excited to do.
That's a very interesting direction your mind went with regards to, you know, the things between the things. Which thing is the right thing for which kid at what time? And I do believe that's the penultimate that hybrid logistics is going to go to, using algorithmic inference, but it will always have to have a human watcher. And that's where we're seeing some teaching, like what you're doing with your frontline, backline teaching, progressing into that sort of guide. It's like way beyond the what librarians have done in the past, into like based on data, go this pathway. That's really the future. And so I love that your mind has gone that direction, Kevin. You've already sort of started to see the missing things between the things, which is, it's amazing. And I'm proud of you, and I'm proud of your team. So thanks. So, okay, so we do have a question, and we're going to come back around, talk about what's next and some of the other things that are coming down the line. So there's a question here for Elaine from Kelly Irwin. Kelly, I'm going to find you on the dashboard if you're still here, and have you ask your question. Let me see if I can find you. Oh, there we go. Kelly. It's not instantaneous on my verbal command yet, so I'm a little frustrated with technology, obviously, right? Okay, so Kelly, if you can unmute yourself on your side, you can ask your question. Kelly Irwin, if you're still there, paying attention, don't know if you're there. If she's not, with 3, 2, 1, I'll ask the question myself. Okay, so I guess, oh yeah, we can see when you're not attentive. Okay, so there you go. So I'm gonna ask the question myself. So this is over to you, Elaine. Question is basically, what type of online prep were you actually doing with students to get them ready to go this direction? You know, that's a heavy lift. There's a lot of students who haven't been inculcated into personal responsibility. You know, you gotta log yourself in, you gotta get yourself going, you gotta get yourself, you know, to the right stuff at the right time, kind of thing. So what was done with that? And that's probably gonna be another question for you, Heather, and you, Kevin, too.
I'm really glad that got asked. That I think that's one of the pieces that has made our program as strong as it is. We actually start at middle school, and we're actually talking about doing this down in intermediate now, but in middle school, we offer online classes to students, but it's in a class period in their schedule, and there is a certified teacher who is not their online teacher, but who is the certified teacher who's really good at building relationships, who is coaching them. So in middle school, they come to school every day. They have a class period that they're going to work on that online class, and they got this mentor who is there to help remind them, you need to log in every day, you need to do some work every day. It's kind of like they're doing the online experience, but they still have somebody sitting there reminding them. So by the time that they get done with usually the first one that they do, they're like, oh, okay, I realized that I not only had to log in, I had to keep on track, and I had to set goals for myself and that kind of thing. And it's been kind of fascinating because now our first kids that we did that with are up here, you know, juniors and seniors, and they know whether they're good at online or not. Like they absolutely know by the time they hit high school whether that's for them or not. And it's been fun to watch them demand more of us. You know, because we used to only offer electives and world languages online, and now we have a comprehensive catalog because they were like, we want to be able to choose, and we want to be able to say, I'm really good at English and I don't need to have a teacher right there with me every day. And so it's been fascinating. But since that's been so successful at 7th and 8th grade, we're actually talking about moving down into the 5th and 6th grades with maybe some digital citizenship curriculum or things like that, so that they can make more of those choices in middle school and maybe not even be under the protective umbrella of a certified teacher there every day. But that's how we prep them. We also do a lot of self-assessments, and we have a matrix that the students, the first class that they take, they kind of assess their own comfort with technology and things like that. The first year that we started that, it was a way of saying, no, you can't take an online class. But then we realized that really wasn't the approach that we needed to take. We needed to take the approach that that was a way for the teachers and the mentors to know what supports that student might need, because that student was feeling a little iffy about, you know, time management or what have you. So they complete that at the start of the school year, so that the teachers and the mentors both know this student's comfort level with this type of learning.
Okay, I think we got all that. Your wireless or your network was kind of coming in and out, Elaine, but I think we got it. So awesome. This is really a moment where that level of personal responsibility for your own learning, this is a culture shift too. I mean, you know, not only do we have to get technology out for everyone and rearrange everything and worry about logistics and everything else, we're also changing the mindset of the average student in America who's been thinking, you know, for generations now, when I go to school, something's going to get done to me. My personal responsibility is just be there and do the things, right? But not direct myself as much, right? Like, so we're in a different age. Okay, so Heather, how about you? What happens with you in terms of the prep of the students for that co-responsibility moment?
Well, I think we have a few things going on. We are one-to-one down through kindergarten, and we just went one-to-one in kinder and first grade. We used to be 3-to-1, but with the pandemic, we went one-to-one, and then we've been one-to-one second grade on up for a few years now. And part of that is that we want students to be participating in some computer adaptive learning, starting all the way in kindergarten. So we use iRead, which was Scholastic product for our kinder, first and second grade students to go through. We have a requirement, they monitor it. So it's individually paced, and the students have to monitor it and support that, and we incentivize it, but it's a beginning way of getting the students moving. And then we also have ST Math, which our K-5 students use to individually work through that. We have some projects then that students are participating in, like with digital citizenship, kindergarten through the high school age, but ways that they're working through some curriculum in a semi-self-paced way, in addition to the teacher-directed computer-based work that they're doing. In sixth grade, we start with teaching them how to use Canvas so that they're more ready for our LMS system that's at the high school. And all of our coursework is delivered through Canvas there. So we actually have a course, a fun course for them where they go and learn how to use Canvas. And then their individually paced learning is through Guru, and they work on individualized math, which is based on MAP scores. We also use NWEA, and we've built that to be in alignment with what our curriculum is going through using Eureka Math, but we've aligned it with the standards and the pacing and scope and sequence, and yet the kids go through, and if they need to go lower and go back grade levels in work, the computer system adapts and takes them back there, and we can follow them, and ideally they all finish or exceed their skyline, which is the line of what we want them to know in each math strand at the end of the year. And so by the time they get to high school, they are ready to start thinking about what their options are, and that our options have changed and grown, especially this year exponentially with online coursework in addition. So we have a fully online program at the high school because of the pandemic. We've had students who were able to opt in, only a handful. We're now up to about 300 students at the high school. I think some of that was driven by the fact that we're a single high school district, so you have to offer multiple ways and multiple pathways to meet all students' needs when your high school is the only game in town. So it's really worked well to allow students to have that flexibility to say, well, I am needing to take X, Y, or Z online, or wanting to take X, Y, and Z online so that I can take additional electives in person, or I can manage my athletics training that I'm doing, or I can continue to take junior college courses because I'm in the dual enrollment, those kinds of things. So I think by participating in various self-paced modules since kindergarten on, it just gradually increases and allows students to be prepared when they're in high school.
Yeah, it's amazing that you're starting all the way to kindergarten, and I bet you're not losing very many of your kindergarten through third, right?
We are not losing our students. We also developed a side-by-side fully virtual online learning academy, and we have about a 50-50 split. So we have over 2,000 students. We essentially rolled out an entirely new school district at our elementary level to go with the pandemic. We were completely overwhelmed with having 2,000 students at the K-8 level sign up to be fully virtual. So we reorganized. Parents had to make their pick. We allowed them to change their mind only at the semester, and that's been hard enough. I can't imagine weekly or every quarter having to try and rearrange. But we have teachers who are fully virtual academy teachers, and they're going through and they're teaching their content online, and the kids will be a part of that all year long. And then our hybrid kids, some of them are still fully online for distance learning because of our situation with COVID, but we have younger grade levels that are starting to come back, and hybrid is its whole own beast of challenges to try and figure out how to combine that face-to-face with the computer instruction. And I think I'm going to want to talk to Kevin later, because we are now looking at how we can best simulcast and what we're going to need in order to be able to do that, because there's some demand for doing simulcasting.
Got it. Yeah, Elaine kind of had a little chuckle in the background there, because they're switching time and space on her constantly over there in Texas. Okay, so Kevin, what about you? What, driving that shift of conscious responsibility in the student body, what's happening there?
I think one of the biggest challenges we had last semester of the last school year was hearing from parents, two challenges. One, hearing from parents that different teachers were doing things different ways and there wasn't consistency across classrooms. Yeah. And then teachers hearing, we think students are so tech savvy, and they are on their phone, but they're not, they don't know how to upload a document. They don't know how to do things. So it was just building out some common nomenclature and things like that. So we tried to take it to what we might do in a traditional classroom, and anybody who's ever talked about like a common board configuration, and why we have a common board configuration across a school. Well, because as students go in a secondary school from classroom to classroom to classroom, we want them to walk into the room and see that essential question or the agenda for the day or the expectations for homework sort of in a similar way across all 7 rooms. We don't want 7 or 8 different ways for a student to have to see something. This teacher puts it up here, and this teacher does it digitally, and this teacher doesn't have it, and this, right? So it's a common organizational tool that we would expect to see in a face-to-face classroom. And so then we should expect to see that in a digital classroom as well. We were not a district that had a common learning management system when we went to our COVID break in March. We ended up using Microsoft Teams, and it worked well, but we said, as we go forward into the future, we need a learning management system. And we had been using Canvas for a couple different projects and programs, and so that's the one we chose to implement. And when we did that, we set a lot of parameters on what we would want our classrooms to look like within Canvas. And so we had to teach our teachers the learning management system. We had to teach them how to make sure things look and feel the way so that students have a similar experience. We don't want to make them sterile and not able to be creative. And some of our teachers are far beyond creative than we can imagine. But we do have to set up situations where students are likely to be successful based on the tools we give them. So that was a big push that we are still working through, because even as you start a new school year and so many changes that we had, you give some grace towards some things, and then you tighten up as the year goes on. And at this point in December, we certainly expect some real basic things as part of the learning management system. So how students are using their calendars, how assignments and grades are done. We have a grade passback feature between Canvas and our student information system, and how those things integrate. So the teaching of all those systems to our staff has been a big lift. And of course, we first have to become experts ourselves. So that's no small lift either. And that's where our digital learning team has been just incredible. I can't say enough great things, but I think setting up those parameters and thinking about getting teachers to think about, when you have students come into your regular old classroom, what are the organizational tools and the ways in which you expect them, whether it's you're going to use your purple folder for math and you're going to use your green folder for English. Well, why do you do that? You have a purpose behind that. So how do we recreate that digitally so that it's seamless for students from course to course to course? And so it's been successful, but I think getting teachers to think about it in a face-to-face classroom has been the most successful way in which we've been able to easily then slide those tools digitally and say, well, this is why you can't just say, email me that document or just upload it over here. We need everybody uploading it into the assignments tab, and we need everybody using the certain rubric that's online, because this is the direction we're going. And that you wouldn't do that in a face-to-face class, so don't do it in a digital or blended environment either.
Yeah, I'm really glad you're doing that, because you've evolved on the district level to realizing that your operational continuity digitally is imperative. And even probably you may even feel you have more to do, because now it's into tagging and how you file stuff. Because we all know that if you try to find something on your own desktop that was like 6 months ago, it's like you can use frustrating hours just trying to find things. And if you do that across an organization as large as yours, Kevin's, wow, what a bunch of lost productivity time. And people are waking up to this in a really large way. So this is really nice leadership that you put in. I'm sure you're not the only one on your team, helping drive people to understand. And this is such a beautiful tip that you just shared. Think about it as if it were a classroom. You walk in, you would see a board, and it would be like the teacher's names on there, and then what's for everybody. Like, where, if you're mentally walking in digitally, what are you seeing? Is there any sort of relief given to the students because it's the same? Or are we like freaking everybody out constantly because it's like, where's that? Who's using what system? I got to log out here. I got to log in over there. It's like adding that additional freak out has really hurt a lot of districts because they didn't understand stepping into the digital universe. You have to have an operation. You have to have like an organization of how you're doing it all. So I'm very proud of you for doing that. Okay, so, just the very last thing I want to have us go around and talk about is, what's your next step? I mean, where do you have to go? Like, as you're sort of doing your little thought leadering as a leader, what do you want to have happen? Like, is it something much even more blended into your community? Would you like to have a vision where you go so far as to like, I'm going to take back all the homeschoolers, I'm going to do it? Like, where are you at with that? So Elaine, why don't you go first?
Okay, so I'm very, very excited about where we head from here. I'm actually also a certified forecast practitioner, so I'm constantly thinking about the future. So when all this first happened, I thought, what advantages can be taken from it? And so we're kind of, as a district, looking at that now. And the things that we have been talking about and brainstorming and planning for the fall, I'm very excited about, because what we're doing is taking a blend of what the students have needed this year and what has worked for them, plus the things that we have been pain points for us as a district for, trying to keep people here, trying to maximize our funding, trying to maximize our staffing and things like that, and sort of taking the ideas from several other innovative programs and schools that we've seen and trying to merge all that together into something that's a brand new offering that would be personalized for every student, that would be a team teaching approach where we're going to have more than one teacher who is responsible for every student, and have it being a true partnership between parents and the district. Because I think that's the one thing, I'm not going to say the one thing, there's lots of pain points during COVID, but the one thing that's been probably the roughest for us, I think, has been, how do we support the parents in all of this? How do we support the parents that are having to sit with their student to help them stay on track and that kind of thing? So we're really looking forward to creating a program in the fall that isn't a response to COVID, but rather is a response to what they've realized about themselves and about their learning styles and that kind of thing, so that we have teachers who during this year have realized, hey, I kind of like this teaching remote thing. We have kids who say, hey, I really love this, being at home. We have parents saying it's been really cool to have my kid here all day because I miss him during the day, and trying to bring all that together to where we're truly in a partnership where people have chosen this path and who are consistently being met where they are, and just a constantly evolving sort of a program that's going to take assessment data anecdotal data, emotional health data, those kind of things to let them know, okay, here's what you're going to do today, and here's what teachers are going to be with today, and that kind of thing. That's kind of what we're looking at. I'm really excited about it because, as I mentioned, I think that it's going to solve a lot of problems that all stakeholders have been having in one nice package that's going to be a real option, not a, well, I'm going to have to settle for this, but rather a real option that is something that is well thought out, well planned, well executed. Teachers are well trained. Everything's done right, because it won't be us reacting to it anymore. It will be us creating from it. And I think that's a big, giant difference. You know, I was in a conference once, and there was a gentleman who had just lost his house to a forest fire. And he said that as he looked at the devastation of his house being burned down, he said that he learned from that we have to plan for things to fall apart beautifully. And I think that's what I take away from COVID, is that now we have to make plans that allow whatever plans we have to fall apart gracefully and well, so that it's not chaos. And I think that's where we're headed next year. And I'm really excited about that being kind of our whole district attitude about it, is to make something good come from everything that we've been through this year.
Phoenix rises. Yes, I like that a lot. All right, Heather, your vision. Where are you going next?
Well, we have a few things. We had been running our Blended Learning Academy for, I guess this would have been our 5th year, and then COVID forced us to take that district-wide. So we're really fortunate that we had some good capacity for when COVID hit, that we had a lot of teachers who were trained. I'm also looking at COVID as we're really fortunate that we were able to take that in mass. And we don't want to lose that. We want to make sure that our teachers who have now been forced to take on learning how to teach digitally and how to do things better, that we expand that. And there is no returning to normal. It's kids are going to be back in person, but now we're going to take, because checking for understanding is good practice. But how do you check for understanding and do a better job using the digital tools you've learned to use? You know, making sure it's engaging and you're building background knowledge has always been important. How can you use technology to do that now and to do it better? So we're really looking at making sure that our new normal incorporates the best of both worlds. We're also looking at continuing to systematically, because I think we're there, we've been moving that way, but we want to make sure systematically, consistently, every teacher, every classroom, that's a norm for us. We want to continue our LVLA as an option for parents and students who think that at-home learning is the right thing for them. We see it as potentially a great option for those independent studies. We have some parents who travel back and forth to India and other countries. And so I think there's probably not an educator on this line that doesn't dread the thick independent study packets that are sent out of busy work in order to meet the requirements of law, but you know that it's not high quality teaching and learning that's going on in those independent study packets. So we see this as an opportunity to do that. I think at the high school, we had a lot of things that were headed in the right direction already. I think now with COVID, we have more student interest and more parent interest. So it'll be really great to watch that grow and expand in that way. So those are some of the things that we're looking at, you know, building upon. I think some of the challenges that have come with it, though, that we're still wrestling with coming out is consistently ensuring that we have data privacy. And you don't want to limit teachers' creativity and willingness to go out and be a risk taker and try something new, but student data privacy is a really important issue, a really important topic. Cybersecurity is a really important topic. And when everybody has their program out there and try it free, and then I sign up all my kids and I put them on this free platform, and you're like, you are freely violating all of the student data privacy in FERPA. You can't do that. We have to have a system that we go through that. So I think that's a big challenge that we continue to have to figure out how to wrestle with. And then just raising everyone's awareness around cybersecurity, because we know the attacks on education are really on the uprise. So it's a high priority for us.
Very excellent points. I completely agree with you. Security, obviously, and integrity, huge right now. Mr. Hendrick, your future.
I think Heather hit on almost every point, and I think maybe two things I can add. One is, as a state, we know we're going to be in this idea of students in school and at home for the rest of the year, and so we made sort of this long-term commitment to make our curriculum accessible and better, as I described earlier, for both platforms. And so that commitment will continue and we'll deepen that. So that's something we're going to continue to do. But I think in concert with that is evaluating these things along the way. We're past the point of panic and, oh my gosh, how are we going to get through this, to the point of, is this working? How do we make it better in the ways that we would normally do those things in the regular school year? Is this digital tool really valuable? Heather brought up these freemiums that teachers get. That's great, but you can't then afford all of those things for everybody who wants to do this thing and that thing and this thing and that thing. So how do you streamline those resources and make things easier and accessible so that it's really clear? I had mentioned our student piece before, and getting things clear for students. The next layer of that is for families and parents. Our families have been watching our teachers teach in their living rooms for 8 months now, and have lots of feedback that they like to give us on that teaching and how we're using the digital tools. So keeping them along, we've been very successful with that, but I think it's also an avenue for family engagement that we have seen grow tremendously as a result of digital learning. We've connected with families in ways we've never had before. So that's another next step that we're going to continue to deepen.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. They've just been deputized nationwide. And it's almost like a great awakening. They're like, hey, what are you telling my kid? You should do it this way, And at least now they're there. And it cannot help but cause more learning that parents are eyeballing this, and they're going, hey, your teacher told you today, do this. You better get in there and do it, right? I think it's a miracle. Honestly, I really do. So I'm so glad that you mentioned that part. Well, thank you guys all for being New Edu Jedi winners this year, and for your awesome work and your obvious drive to even go further. You're going to pull all the rest of the market with you. I am sure of it. We're going to be highlighting you. It's going to be going over national press wires. When we're done with this event, we're going to be writing up a dozen or more stories about all of this. So thank you. I'm going to move along here to our next set of speakers and our lunch and learn. But you guys, well done. Thank you for being with us today, all three of you, Elaine, Heather, Kevin, and our best wishes to your entire teams. Please express to them this is a really big deal, being an Edu Jedi, and we're proud of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.